soap opera 94. Jimmy's out. Barry's in charge. But the keys to an unprecedented three-peat still rest on the legs of Emmett and the arm of Troy. Tonight, those guys and the rest of the Cowboys take on the Giants. We'll get you ready on NFL Prime Monday.
A 3-0 start for the Giants has suddenly become 3-5. A loss tonight would mean the worst losing streak in 15 years. We'll have more on the big problems in the Big Apple. Joe?
George Foreman, move over. Warren Moon turns 38 soon, and he gets better every week. But the secret to Warren's success isn't his alone. It lies in the hands of someone else. Jaws?
I'll open the Prime Monday playbook and show you how the Dallas Cowboy offense creates some real matchup problems for the Giants defense.
It's the matchup of the year, coming soon to a big screen near you. The Cowboys and the 49ers square off next week. Tonight, our Knights of the Round Table debate which is the better team at this point in the season. Pam?
I'm Pam Oliver at Texas Stadium, where the Dallas Cowboys try to remain the true beasts of the East, while the Giants just try to put the brakes on their major losing skid. I'll have that and more coming up.
Hi, I'm Chris Berman. Tonight we look back at the first year of the Dallas Cowboys, the expansion Cowboys of young head coach Tom Landry in 1960. When they played the Giants, it was the only non-blemish on their season. We'll explain later.
Downtown Julie Brown this week with Troy Aikman. Troy talks about the memories of 2 championship seasons and the things he doesn't remember.
I was talking to people and everything else, but I don't remember any of that. And I wasn't making any sense. I didn't know who people were in my life. I didn't know who close friends were. They would bring up names, and I'd say, you know, I heard of them. Who are they?
And we'll collapse the pocket with Giants defensive end Keith Hamilton.
Let's make it happen tonight, baby. Let's make it happen tonight. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Let's go.
We're going on Prime Monday next. Monday Night Football from Texas Stadium in Irving. The Giants and the Cowboys. We'll get you ready for the game and much more going on in the league this NFL Prime Monday. And welcome to the show with Phil Simms and Joe Theismann, Mike Tirico. Joe, worked last night at Chiefs game. Good to have you here.
Good to have you here. Coming from there.
Just whack me if I fall asleep.
I know, but we sure missed you, Joe. It's good to have you back, baby.
As you two get reacquainted, the best week of the NFL season starts in Dallas. The Cowboys trying to hold on to the best record in the league. Dallas is the hottest NFL team, going for a 6th straight win. The Giants the coldest, hoping to avoid a 6th straight loss. Pam Oliver covering the game a little drier than last week in Chicago. Pam?
Thank goodness for that, Mike. You know, the Dallas Cowboys have a serious stranglehold on NFC East opponents. Tonight they will try to push their mark to 12 straight over division foes, and that is quite an impressive figure considering that other than the Washington Redskins, they have not lost to an NFC East team since 1992, which happens to be an NFL record. So can anybody slow them down? Well, Cincinnati almost did last week, and from that narrow victory, Barry Switzer and his group got a bit of a wake-up call just in time to face another team that is also gasping for air.
It's going to be an NFL Monday night, and all these games, when you don't play well in the 60 minutes, you tee it up to the last tick on the clock. Things that happen determine who's going to win the football game, and obviously we're favored, but if we don't play well, we don't protect the ball, then New York can win it.
Russell Maryland said this week that he's surprised that the team started duty only, and that is holding for kicks. Novacek is coming back from an abdominal strain. He is not quite 100%, so the Cowboys have elected not to play him in the tight end capacity, trying to save him for the next game against the San Francisco 49ers. That is if he can be healthy for that game. Mike, coming up a little bit later on, I'll have a talk with Dan Reeves. Boy, how in the world does he stop the bleeding with this team? Back to you.
Okay, Pam, we'll see you then. Looking ahead to next week, everyone talked about it with San Francisco yesterday. What about with Dallas tonight?
Well, they say they're not looking ahead to next week, and that's bad news for the Giants. The last time they were on national TV on Monday night, the Cowboys got beat by the Detroit Lions. Last week, they really got beat up physically by the Cincinnati Bengals. And next week, they got to play that team, the 49ers next week. So all that adds up. They're going to come out tonight and be aggressive on offense, aggressive on defense, because they want to discourage this Giant team and get this game over with so they can get ready for next week, Joe.
Well, you know how they do it, Phil. It's interesting. When you look at them, everybody talks about the great in Russell, Maryland, and Troy Aikman, everybody. But I think what really makes the defensive side of the ball go for the Cowboys are their two corners, Smith and Brown. Very underrated, but they're the keys. What they're going to do is they'll shut down the giant wide receivers, and that's really not a good sign for a young quarterback in Brown, struggling, trying to find himself, to try and go out and have a good game against two great corners, Jaws.
Well, Joe, defensively, the Giants would love to play that two-deep zone. That way they can get that 5 underneath and they can get the jam and the bump on Irvin and Harper. But Ernie Zampese's not going to allow that to happen. I think you'll see Kevin Williams in there early, go the 3 wide, use the formation variation, use the motion to create the matchups that favor Irvin and Harper, Mike.
You got to like Jaws. Big game next week, but he's playing hurt this week. Dallas, as Pam mentioned, looking for a 12th straight win over an NFC East team on the way to next week's much-anticipated showdown with San Francisco. The hype for which started today. You know, Jerry Rice yesterday skipped his pregame meal, so he was sneaking a hot dog on the sidelines before this touchdown run. The Niners won 37-22. They've won 4 straight, and here come the Cowboys.
It's important, though, from the standpoint of getting a win. I mean, that's the most, whether it be Dallas or anybody else. It happens to be the particular team that we're playing at this stage. So yeah, it's important, and from the standpoint that we've lost to them, sure it would be important to us to win the game. It would help us, but in fact, I think everybody understands that win or lose, it doesn't preclude what ultimately is going to happen this season.
A little bit later, ex-Cowboy, current Niner Ken Norton Jr. will join us to talk about the big game against his old team. Our roundtable will also look ahead to the big game. We'll update the quarterback injuries, and there were a lot of them around the league yesterday. We'll go backstage with Cowboy quarterback Troy Aikman. Next, it's the playbook, the Giant defense. Not what we've come to expect from Big Blue. Well, why? Jaws opens up the playbook with some answers as Prime Monday continues. Get you ready for the Cowboys and the G-Men.
NFL Prime Monday is brought to you by McDonald's. What you want is what you get at McDonald's today. And by Transamerica. For life insurance and financial services, the power of the pyramid is working for you.
Part of the Giants' offensive problems, not caring for the ball, something Dan Reeves preaches about. New York's gone from the best in the league at not turning it over last year to 15th in the league, giving the ball away. When most mention the Giants' free agency losses, Phil's name comes up most often. But remember, the Giants lost 3/4 of their starting secondary to free agency. Right cornerback Corey Raymond is the only DB who started against Dallas at the end of the regular season last year and will start tonight. Time to open the playbook to see what's wrong with the Giants D. And once again, here's Jaws.
Hey, Mike, historically, the Giants have dominated on defense, but when you lose the talent they've lost, it's hard to be competitive every week.
On this play against the Lions last week, you see the Giants react to Detroit's 3 wide receiver formation with a 4-2-5 alignment. 2 linebackers and 5 defensive backs. On first down, the Giants have been taken out of their base defensive approach of 2 deep zone, which is the coverage that best protects their average cornerback play. But the Lions, with their formation, force the Giants to match up on the corners. Randolph and Beeman are giving up way too much ground. They're not strong man-to-man cover men, and they've backed off way too much to prevent the big play. The Lions take advantage of the soft coverage with the quick slant. Brett Perriman will make the catch with far too much room. A 9-yard pass becomes a 23-yard gain. Dallas will dictate these man-to-man matchups against Irvin and Harper and attack with the passing game. And the Giants can't generate consistent pressure with a 4-man rush, so they're forced to bring linebackers. Here, Michael Brooks will become the 5th pass rusher. That will put the Giants in man-free coverage. Other than safety Jesse Campbell, who will be free to protect the deep middle, the Giants will match up in man coverage. Again, that is not their strength. The 3-step drop by Scott Mitchell defeats the rush, and Willie Beeman will be beaten on the slant by Herman Moore. The Giant defense will be physically overmatched against the Cowboys. The burden tonight falls on the Giant offense to control the football and score.
with the Giant offense ranked dead last in the NFL, it's going to be up to their defense to score some points or at least cause some turnovers to get the offense in position to score some points. And that means they're going to have to gamble a little bit defensively, blitz Aikman, try to cause a turnover. Because, Joe, if they don't cause turnovers, they don't have a chance tonight.
Ronnie, I really disagree with you. I just don't believe that they can try and go after Troy Aikman with blitzes. They're going to leave those corners one-on-one. And as we talked about, they've replaced so many people in the secondary. I think the best thing the Giants can do is play double coverage. Put the corners up, try and bump Alvin and Michael, make them take their time, throw a little bit of that passing game off. And if the Cowboys are going to move the football, let it be 12 and 14 play drives. I think that's the only chance the Giants have, Phil.
So you don't
only chance.
You don't like the Giants tonight, so you're trying to tell me?
Well, no, I don't. You're right.
You know, it sounds great in theory. Play that two-deep zone and not give up those big plays, but I don't think they can prevent the big plays tonight either. Like Joe says, they got a young secondary, and the big thing is the defensive line for the Giants is beat up. The Cowboys have said they're going to come out and be...
Welcome back to Prime Monday. News, notes, and quotes time. And now good news, notes, or quotes for the team that may be emerging as the AFC frontrunner. In Miami, Keith Byars out for the season with a knee injury, a torn anterior cruciate and medial collateral ligament in his right knee, plus cartilage damage. That all adds up to reconstructive surgery for Keith Byars, the pass-catching threat for the Dolphins. To add to that, Bernie Parmalee also out for a week with a strained knee ligament, so Mark Higgs, Cleveland Gary, or Irving Spikes will fill the void. Some candidates for reinforcements include Gerard Bunch, Ron Wolfley, John Stevens, and Aaron Craver. June Jones chatted with Andre Rison in Atlanta today after Andre was held catchless for the first time in 58 games. Rison's not happy, but the free agent next year says he's not asking out of Atlanta. He likes the offense and he likes the coach. But the offense may need to get Andre into shorter routes to get him the ball more. Rison, like other big-name receivers in the past, just putting some public pressure to find the ball his way a little bit more. Look at the numbers. In his first 2 games, remember that great start, 26 catches? In his last 7 games, he hasn't equaled the catch number, shut out by the Chargers defense yesterday. As we keep hearing rumors about sales and moves with the Rams and Raiders, big news for Southern California. You can see the Rams and Raiders on TV. The Battle of L.A. next Sunday in Anaheim is a sellout. First time the home TV blackout has been lifted for either L.A. team this year. On the Bills injury front, although they look bad, Andre Reed and Don Beebe may be able to give it a shot next Monday against Pittsburgh. Ferocious hitting throughout the Bills-Jets game yesterday at the Meadowlands. Oh, by the way, one reason New York coach Pete Carroll showed his defense a tape of great boxing knockouts to get them in the frame of mind for the game yesterday. On the quarterback front, Detroit's Scott Mitchell may be done for the year, despite the fact that he broke a bone in his non-throwing right hand. Mitchell broke the navicular bone in his hand. It's now in a cast to immobilize the hand. Dave Craig will start Chuck Long as the backup, so the Lions may be looking at other quarterbacks to try to ensure the backup role. Other injuries, Neil O'Donnell, contusion at the left fibula. Further exam tomorrow. The Steelers right now think he'll be okay for next Monday against the Bills. Stan Humphries will start unless he does anything else to the elbow in practice this week. On the Ram front, Chris Chandler's concussion not too bad. He should start against the Raiders. More tests on Vinny Testaverde tomorrow before a decision on his most recent concussion. David Klingler's knee is ready for Sunday, but David Shula says Jeff Blake has earned the start against Houston after Blake threw for 387 yards in the Bengals' first win of the season yesterday at Seattle. Salary is now factoring into several quarterback controversies. To discuss that new era in the NFL, our Knights of the Roundtable, Mike Wilbon from the Washington Post, Skip Bayless from the Dallas Insider, and Mitch Albom from the Detroit Free Press.
Thank you, Mike. Well, you're right about that. You know, in fact, I don't know if you guys happen to see, but Dan Reeves made a comment saying some teams seem to manage free agency over the summer a little better than others. He said San Francisco did it well. Maybe the Giants didn't do it so well, knocking his own team.
And guess what? He's right, Mitch, because the Giants were the one good team in the offseason that let the cap beat it.
Well, I'm going to knock Dan Reeves a little bit and wonder why he wasn't making these comments to his general manager, George Young, in July and August. That's the time to go in and say, hey, wait a minute, we need Phil Simms here. We need some of these defensive backs right here. Don't wait until after you've gone 3-0.
Or when they were 3-0, we didn't make a lot of noise then either. But let's point out that the teams that spent a lot of money didn't all do so well either. In fact, some of them are singing the blues. In Detroit, as Mike said, Scott Mitchell is out now with an injury. All that money, $11 million bucks, and the people in Detroit, believe it or not, are almost celebrating that Dave Craig gets to finish out the rest of the year.
Now, I told you about Scott Mitchell on opening night.
Yes, you're brilliant.
We're not going to get it, but, you know, he may be playing on the field, but there's another game going on off the field, and that's beating the cap. And I mean, Scott Mitchell may not be playing for a while, but that $5 million is still counting against the cap, prorated next year. Even if you can't even cut a quarterback because the bonuses still count for the Jim Harbaughs, for the David Klinglers, for the Eric Kramers. So that's what they're going to have. You can't even go out and get another quarterback if your quarterback situation is bad.
Exactly, Michael. Look at the 49ers and their creative financing. They figured out all the loopholes to jump through, while the Giants we just spoke of, their idea of cap management was to lop off the salary of Phil Simms and him in the process, which I think was the single dumbest move of the offseason. If the New York Giants tonight even had Phil Simms, our very own Phil, still at quarterback, I still think they'd be a big factor in the NFC
Have you been huddling with Phil in the breaks here in between? You working as his agent or what? I agree. The point about Phil Simms is that he won some Super Bowls. If you're going to give money to some guys, give it to some guys who are proven winners. Look at the people they gave money to.
Exactly.
Kramer, Harbaugh, Scott Mitchell. I mean, a lot of these guys are sort of career #2 guys who are getting not only starter money, almost Hall of Fame starter money.
Which means some of these personnel people in the NFL ought to be held accountable, which means fired for some of these quarterback decisions they've made. You know, most recently, it's Charlie Ward getting passed over, who ought to be in somebody's camp. 15 years ago, it was Warren Moon getting passed over. Now, the guy has more yards than anybody in professional football history passed.
Speaking of Warren Moon, Michael, he was the best quarterback acquisition of the offseason. My goodness, this guy won 11 straight games for the Oilers last year. He's still durable, even at 38, and he's still, and this is most important, hungry for a Super Bowl.
Well, I'm going to actually agree with you, Skip.
Thank
I'm going to continue the Moon swoon, because yesterday, that game that he led them back in the last second drive and beat the Saints, that's the kind of thing they would have lost last year. And as far as I'm concerned, he won the Central Division for them with that play yesterday.
What are you talking about?
No, hear me out. They got a 2-game lead on the next closest team, which is Green Bay. They're done playing Green Bay. They play New England, Tampa, and the Jets in the next 3 games. A lot of their games are at home.
Time out,
They're going to win it.
It's only November 7th. What are you doing? Aren't you overreacting?
No, I'm not. I'm swooning.
I'm going to agree with Mitch and tell you that I think they also won the Central yesterday. Part of the reason being there are never any quarterbacks in the NFC Central. Minnesota was smart enough to go out and get one. If you're going to get a guy, pay for a veteran, not a Scott Mitchell who plays 3 games, all at home, I think, for 1 year, and goes out and cashes in for $3 million.
In defense of that, however, Minnesota was going to spend the same kind of money Detroit was going to spend on Scott Mitchell. They had a pamphlet all made up, why the Vikings want Scott Mitchell, and he turned them down. And you know what they did with that pamphlet? They crossed out the Scott Mitchell name, and they put in Warren Moon, and they sent it to him. And Warren was so impressed with this thing. He said, that's the kind of team I want to play for, and he went and took it. So they might not have been so brilliant. They might have just been lucky.
Great story.
Being lucky could be better.
I always like to tell a good story. We'll be back with another roundtable about next week's big game later on. Mike?
Okay, Mitch, we'll see you guys then. You know, we're talking about the salary cap, and Phil, it's really changed the way teams evaluate players in training camp.
Yeah, I think it has. It used to be you'd go to training camp, you'd put everybody's name up on the depth charts, and you would take your 45 best players. But what has happened now, you put those players up there, and before you can make decisions on who you're going to keep, you got to find out and look at the salary they're making. And I think it's a shame jobs have come down strictly in the money, but that's just the truth. And, you know, I'm not bitter about the salary cap.
No, not too much. Salary cap poster boy, Phil Simms.
That's right.
Hey, are the Cowboys looking ahead to next week? We'll ask Dan Deerdorf in a little bit. Also ahead on Prime Monday. Later backstage, downtown Julie Brown catches up with the Cowboy in Dallas, Troy Aikman.
I didn't know who people were in my life. I didn't know who close friends were. They would bring up names, and I'd say, you know, I heard of them. Who are they?
When you stay at one of those fancier motels, admittedly, you
had a great start, so did the Giants, but it's fallen apart on both fronts in the last 5 games. Brown has as many TDs to Giants as he does TDs by the other team off of intercepted passes. To talk about Dave Brown and more about tonight's game, ABC's Dan Deerdorf joins us from Dallas, Texas. Dan, in terms of Dave Brown, any young quarterback's going to have a couple of bumps in the road. As you talk with Dan Reeves and the Giants, how do they feel about Dave?
Oh, I don't think Dan Reeves has changed his opinion whatsoever, Mike. This is the guy that he feels is the long-term quarterback of the New York Giants, and anybody who thought that mistakes of that nature weren't going to happen just wasn't thinking clearly.
He doesn't get an easy task tonight going against a very talented Dallas front seven. People statistically see Dallas playing better than they did last year on defense. How do you see them right now at the halfway point?
Well, I just don't. I think the loss of Eric Williams is really the only negative that this football team has experienced, and that's a big loss. They can't afford to lose anybody else of that caliber on this football team. But at 7-1, the way they are playing defensively, the way they are moving the ball through the air offensively, they're not happy with their running game. To think this is a team that thinks they have reason to improve and ways to improve, it's kind of scary.
Everybody loves a big game, and all of us are looking forward to Dallas-San Francisco on Sunday. San Francisco took care of business yesterday. How in the world could the Cowboys possibly not be thinking a little bit about that game when they take the field tonight?
Well, I'm sure it crept into their thoughts during the week. I think maybe that the game in Cincinnati last week might have helped them to expel some of those thoughts and focus a little bit more on the New York Giants. At least it should have. That was a real scare they got in Cincinnati, and I think maybe recent memory tells them what dogfights they've had with the Giants, and they really shouldn't expect anything easy tonight.
Dan, we'll see you, Al, Frank, and Lynn at 9 Eastern.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike.
The Cowboys-Giants, Dan, a longtime rivalry, much like Dallas-Washington. Rivals despite the 1,000-plus mile separation between the cities. NFL rivalries have sustained despite a lack of geographic proximity within divisions. That expanded even more last week when the commissioner placed Charlotte in the NFC West and Jacksonville in the AFC Central. So that sent Mitch Albom to school for an NFL-style geography lesson.
You're right about that, Mike. Thanks. You know, last week the NFL did decide where to put its 2 new expansion teams, and true to form, it made no sense. East is East, West is West, except in the NFL, where the divisions are child's play, meaning even a child doesn't have that much imagination. Good morning, class.
Good morning, Mr. Albom.
Today's subject is NFL geography, and let's take a look at the map. Let's begin with a city in North Carolina, Charlotte. Who can tell me what part of the country North Carolina is in? Yes?
The East.
That's very good. And what NFC division should North Carolina be in?
The East.
Wrong. The West. Let's go out here. How about Arizona? Now, who can tell me what part of the country Arizona is located in?
Yes. The West.
Very good. And what NFC division should Arizona be in?
The West.
No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. The East. Let's try the AFC. Maybe you have better luck there. How about the Miami Dolphins? Now, they wear really nice uniforms. What part of the country is Miami in?
East.
Very good. And what AFC division?
East.
How about this team, the New York Jets?
East.
What AFC division?
East.
Good. And how about this new team, Jacksonville? What part of the country is that?
East.
And what AFC division?
East.
No, I'm sorry, the Central.
This is really hard.
Okay, class, would it make sense to put Miami and Jacksonville and Tampa all in one division since they're all in the state of Florida?
Yes.
And shouldn't we have Indianapolis with Chicago and Detroit since they're all in the Central?
Yes.
So will the NFL do this?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry, it makes too much sense. Let's try something a little easier. If 2 trains are traveling 200 miles and one is going 3 times the speed of the other into a 40-mile-an-hour breeze, what time will they meet in Oklahoma City?
3:07 p.m.
That's right.
That's easy. This NFL stuff is impossible.
Class dismissed.
Thanks to the kids from Warren, Michigan. Thank you, kids. A trio of similar intelligence. Our quarterbacks come back to talk about the Niners clicking offense. Closer to the Giants and the Cowboys, less than an hour away. Moose, Darryl Johnston. He catches, he runs, he blocks. He's even the backup snapper on the Cowboys' special teams. Darryl Johnston getting ready for the Giants. Time for Quarterback's Cube.
What did he say about us?
Said you're not smart.
He's right. Can't argue.
Sorry. Gentlemen, talk about what's going on today. There's a smart guy, Jaworski, back with us. Hey, Steve Young and the 49ers, we talk about how well they're playing. They're clicking. We'll talk to Ken Norton in a couple of minutes. But on the offensive side, Steve Young's completed 75% of his passes, Phil, the last 4 games.
Not bad, I tell you. And I think there's a good reason why. It's because a couple weeks ago, they're playing the Philadelphia Eagles. They can't protect the passer, so what's his team do? They make great adjustments. They go to play Detroit, and what do? Let's watch what they did in the game. They throw the ball short. They take all the pressure off their offensive linemen by getting rid of the ball quick. You see Young here throwing short passes. The line gets better. So what do you think they do once the line gets back and healthy? They start going deep. Not to Jerry Rice, to Brent Jones down the field. And he's just like Jerry Rice and John Taylor. He knows what to do with it. Here's a team, no matter what the circumstances are, they know how to make adjustments to win the football games. They threw the ball short. They throw it long with great ease. They got both working. That's great for Dallas next week.
Well, you know, it is. It is to a degree, but when you talk about teams getting big numbers, quarterbacks doing well, lines coming back. Anytime a quarterback posts big numbers, you just don't want to look at him. You have to look at the contribution that other people make. Warren Moon yesterday put up 420 yards passing the football. Why? Because he's gotten tremendous help from his receivers. Here's Chris Carter over the middle, catches it, adds about 25 yards after the run. Now look at this sweetheart. He's out in the right flat. How about a one-hander, Chris? Why not? But I'm not done yet. We need the first down. Let me throw it up a little bit. Jake Reed, where are you? There you are. Watch me run, Chris. Down you go. Off you go. Go, Jake, go. That's exactly what Warren Moon got yesterday. He got a ton of help, Ronnie, from a lot of wide receivers. You get guys running with the ball like that, you're going to have 420 yards of passing offense.
Boy, Joe, you are getting fired up. I like it. You must be getting ready to play again. But speaking of quarterbacks having fantastic years, Randall Cunningham in Philadelphia is having an outstanding year. And I think because of his performance, the Eagles now have moved into the elite of the NFL. Good defense, good running game, and Randall Cunningham making plays. Big plays by design. And you'll see right here, right after a turnover, an Arizona fumble, Randall goes to the little short waggle, sets and delivers to Barnett, attacking Buddy Ryan's defense right there. They play that in and out coverage. And there was a play that Randall made because of the design of the play. In the past, he has made big plays by improvisation, but now Randall is staying within the design of the offense. And maybe to show Randall's maturity, Phil, he has now thrown touchdown passes to 7 receivers, and 6 receivers have caught at least 10 passes. That's pretty good distribution.
Yes, Charles, that is pretty good.
So, Jaws, I think it's great you came in tonight because I'd have bagged it and stayed home. But you're right, Philadelphia is playing well. And another team that's playing well is the Cleveland Browns. I do not think they're mirage at 7-2. And one of the reasons is that Cleveland defense. Last week, the week before, they got beat up by John Elway, but not this past week. Drew Bledsoe with no wideout help because they're hurt. The Cleveland defense did what it can do, put pressure on the quarterback. With only Ben Coates to throw to, as you see here, the ball's intercepted, he gets upset, and Joe, the only reason he can get upset, there's nobody outside to help him, to take the pressure off of him as the tight end.
Yeah, but you mentioned a name of a position guy that really has come on, and you talk about Ben Coates. What a terrific job he's done at the tight end, but that's sort of become the forgotten position a little bit in football. We talk about the Rices, the Sharps, and everyone else, but if you don't have a good tight end, you're not going to be successful. Let's take a look at